Hello, class. Today we are looking at Chapter 3-2, Functions. So the time it takes you to get to your destination is a function of how fast you travel. Your speed affects how long the trip will take. A function is a rule that assigns to each input value exactly one output value. A function rule is an equation that describes the function. Let's go ahead and write those down. Okay, so looking at these three equations that we have right here, the x, the t, and the c are all input variables. Okay, and then the result of those are the output variables, and the result ones are going to be the y, the d, and the f, and those are output variables. Okay, so let's just take a look. Juan begins his exercise walk from his friend's house, which is 50 meters from his own house. The function d equals 3t plus 50 gives the distance d in meters after t seconds that Juan is from his own house while walking. Find the output d for the input t equals 10. So write the function. So I actually did that right here. This is the function, this equation. Substitute 10 for t. So then we have d equals 3 times 10 plus 50. Simplify. 3 times 10 is 30 plus 50. If we add those together, we get d equals 80, and that's going to be meters. Okay? So that basically is saying that after 10 minutes, he is 80 meters from his house. So let's look at this function here. So we have f equals 9/5 C plus 32. Converts temperature in degrees to Celsius. C equals the degrees to Fahrenheit, F. So if we saw that C equaled 20, let's go ahead and solve for F. So first thing we want to do is substitute the input of C. So then we have F equals 9/5 times 20 plus 32. So if we combined these, 5 can go into 20 4 times. So 1 down here, 4 up here. So that was just reducing that fraction. Now that we have 1's on the bottom, those can cross out. 9 times 4 is 36 plus 32. Add those together, we have 68. So when the temperature gauge says 20 degrees Celsius, it is actually 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So another way to think about this is looking at tables. So in this table here, the function t equals 1/2 m minus 12 gives the temperature T in a container in the degrees Celsius, M, minutes before. At the start and during an experiment, use the function to make an input-output table, m equals -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So our first one, our input, is going to be -2. So where the m was, we're putting in -2. And when we solve that, we get -13. So that's going to be the output. Oh, let's change that color. So if we put the input -1 in, the output is going to be -12.5. If we put 0 in and solve, we get -12. If we put 1 in and we get -11.5. If we put 2 in, we get -11. Okay, so now we're going to use the function m equals 1/3 n plus 1 to make an input-output table. So what we want to do is create a chart. I should have already put this in here for you. Sorry about that. So this is going to be the input for n, and this is going to be the output for m. So we have -1, 0, 1, and 2. So if we go m equals, let's do a different color for this, 1/3 n, and we're putting in -1 plus 1. Solve that. So -1 times 1/3 is going to be 1/3. Actually, a -1/3 plus 1. So then we'll need to combine those. So 1 could be rewritten as 3/3. That also equals 1. So then if we have -1/3 plus 3/3 is the same thing as subtracting, where I could move this over here and then erase this here. So that's going to equal 2/3. So m equals 2/3. Okay, and then if we plug 0 in, m equals 1/3 times 0 plus 1. 0 times 1/3 is equal to 0, so that crosses out. M equals 1. If we do for 1, m equals 1/3 times 1 plus 1. That's going to equal m equals 1/3 plus 1. 1 plus 1/3 is going to equal 1 1/3. And then if we did 2, we have m equals 1/3 times 2 plus 1. So multiply those together, we get m equals 2/3 plus 1, and that's going to equal 1 2/3. Okay, output, input. So this next one, go ahead and try on your own, check back and see how you did. You should have got, when the input was 6, the output was 0.30. When the input was 12, the output was 0.6. When the input was 24, the output was 1.20, or 1.2. Your homework tonight is page 89 through 90, 5 through 19 odd.